I almost forgot actually. I want to analyze Kato's set that he gave me actually. That is what I was gonna do. I gotta go find it really quick. I know it's in my YouTube history, but I'd rather just look for it in the Discord, honestly. It's in like needed advice and tips, I think. Yeah, there it is. So I was asked to analyze this, so we'll do that instead of continuing on gaming. I'm too lazy to change the title, so if someone comes in, shut up. Oh, I broke this, didn't I? Whoop. Let me change the window capture to this. Cool. All right. This is nice because I get to analyze actual Baiken matches that aren't my own, which is like the thing that I was kind of hoping to get to do more of. Specifically because it gives me like perspective on why other people would do things and maybe like some of the habits that some of the early habits that Baikens form, right? Because it's hard for me to remember like some of the old bad habits I have, and like I only think about like the recent bad habits I have, right? Round start 2D. Round start 2D is pretty good. I should probably do this more against Eno at round start. So anyone who doesn't know, 2D is notoriously good at catching Eno's hover dash when she's trying to do it towards you. So it's nice. Technically, it doesn't combo into the tatami follow-up that you're most likely going to cancel into, but most of the time people aren't instantly teching, so that usually hits them anyway. It's very hard to be ready for that instant hit into tatami. But yeah, against Eno, honestly, a lot of the times I anticipate that they're probably terrified of a character like mine, so I move forward at round start quite often against Eno. Until they show that they're good at dealing with it. Jump back, air dash forward. So this is an important thing to note. In general, I would say, kind of like early on about Baiken as a character, is jumping back from this position is quite scary. If you're not used to disengaging constantly with Baiken. Disengaging as in look at this. Projector. Is gonna work on the first try? Not. I should fix it. Yeah. So, so like if your opponent is like in this general space, and you are here and you've jumped back as Baiken, one of the most important skills to have. In fact, it's one of the ones that I'm gonna start telling people from now on probably is being able to disengage with IAD back to Tommy is so important. IAD back to Tommy, specifically the one that gives you a bunch of distance, is a really strong option against most characters in this spacing. By the time they are reacting to what is happening, you are probably a mile away. And it's good because it gets you further away, where I see a lot of Baikens do jump back to Tommy here, right? It's like that. But it takes too long for that Tommy to come out and protect you. And oftentimes you will get rushed down before it helps you. And I think some Baikens start to, instead of trying to get good at doing I keep saying IAD back, air dash back to Tommy here. Just regular air dash back to Tommy. Instead of doing air dash back to Tommy in this spot, a lot of them will just start committing meter instead. They'll just spend this 25 bar so that they're no longer punishable, because the tatami, they don't have to wait on the rest of the startup, right? But I would say that it's way better to just sort of like start to learn how to disengage off of that, and then play around getting back in quickly, right? Because that's a thing that she can do. She can disengage really quickly, and then she can re-engage really quickly off these situations. And then from that point, it's your opponent's job to sort of like gauge how they want to play around that. But at level 1, that's like pretty darn important as Baiken for the most part. And it specifically doing stuff like that makes options like this much stronger over time. This is the hit confirm. From there, you only really need to do like 2 jump Ps or so. And then by then you can like go into JK, and then you'll have a hit confirm off of it. Or a block string if they just like stayed grounded. And if you notice that 3rd jump P, it grants too much height to the opponent. More of a problem with lightweights, but in general, the 3 jump Ps is a bit much, and will make confirms difficult from there. Good jump ass. Misses the meaty tatami. I like that. Yeah. So this is probably like one of the hardest things to get used to, right? As like a Baiken player is if you're incapable of sort of like engaging quickly with things like spaced Kira tatame, uh, or spaced IAD or dash forward into like falling tatami. If you're not very comfortable with those, you can often feel like neutral is hard for her, like extra hard, because because it feels like by the time you're running in, they can sort of react to that approach, right? Where usually Kira tatame is a really quick burst option that is hard to react to and hard to interact with. I like that 6P. That's good to do. Oh, nice. See, this is a good example, right? Of like what I was talking about. Where if you do jump back and you ID back to Tommy, a lot of the times you'll get that extra distance. Good hit confirm. Oh, that's a little scary. So, um, because of how far this jump is connected, um, just because of like the natural distance when the confirm started, doing this setup is actually not enough to get a good meaty tatami perfectly. You're actually too far, and there's a higher chance that they can backdash. So you notice how that first hitbox doesn't connect on tatami, only the second hitbox did, right? Which means that more than likely he could have backdashed on wake up, right? And it's this is much more of a problem against lightweights than it is against the other characters because of how much farther they travel before they touch the floor. But it's important to recognize once they've gone too far and make the proper adjustments. From here, you can usually do I usually just do a regular air dash tatami, not the keto one, not Tiger Knee, just like a good full length tatami, and it's usually the solution to the problem. It is pretty finicky to get perfect spacings on lightweights, especially off weird not I wouldn't call them weird, but further knockdowns is the way I would put it. Less standard knockdowns against lightweights, but it is like a really important skill to get good at. Instant Sakura. Also, this is just my personal like rule of thumb. Obviously, I don't like you guys play each other a lot, so maybe it's different. But if you're gonna do throw baits, only do them if you have been thrown. I know that sounds silly to say, like it sounds kind of redundant, but don't be doing Sakura to bait 4H unless they've been 4Hing you and like throwing you out of armor dash a lot. You want to save that kind of thing. Also, a bit of like a subtle thing, but you can space Suzuran a little better than this. Had you kept doing Suzuran, you would have probably been right on top of them before the move had ended. And the only reason that that's a big deal usually is because it means that the opponent can throw you out of the armor dash even sooner. Because there are situations where if they are only waiting for you to armor dash, there's a chance they might even just react too fast, right? They might see it, input 4H, and react too fast to throw you out of it. But that kind of thing dies if you don't space the armor dash perfectly, and that spacing just kind of comes with time. Like you can set that spacing by just adding natural delays in block strings or adding different hits or using different normals. That kind of thing isn't like set in stone, and you can feel that out over time. Nobody blocks Ino on wake up, so I feel that. Good block. Gets caught. Zami? You should always flex a Zami. If you're in a spot where you can still get away with it, you want to flex red Azami on things like Note or things like meaty projectiles. You don't want to commit your burst out of block here. I would say simply because she's a character that can kind of like gamble, lose the gamble, and then burst, right? If you look for a good burst point. That I think it's worth trying to learn that as Baiken, especially since they made red Azami much easier. It's worth being able to play around red Azami against characters that need to either hard bait it or do specific OSs to beat it, right? Like just representing the option is super important. What happened there? Neutral, no. So me personally, a lot of the times against Ino, this is like a matchup thing, not just like, or sorry, this is a matchup thing, not necessarily like a Baiken thing in general. When I'm in this kind of neutral state with Ino, a lot of the times I will, and you can see this if you watch me play against the Inos, is I will oftentimes own space up to like around here. Maybe not that far, a little less far actually. I will often own space up to like we'll say like around here, and then I will commit to dash forward jump. And dash forward jump will put me around here. But the reason it's cool is because if the Eno from over here commits to note early, by the time note is kind of coming out, if you do it properly, you can air dash back, avoid the note, and set a tatami, right? To sort of play around the fact that Enos are very accustomed around tossing a note and then sort of just like winning neutral off of it in most instances, or not necessarily winning neutral, but at least like forcing certain air routes to happen. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. It was like around here, right? Yeah. Right. So had he continued to jump, right? You see the note traveling. You see the note traveling. You can often avoid the note, right? Like by the time this note is here, had he done that sort of like movement thing, you're usually like around here. So you'll do air dash back, and then you'll fall before this note usually connects. It is very unlikely. Hey, what's up, Joy? It is very unlikely that the note will be capable of correcting itself all the way downward in time. And this is great because you do this if the note is high. If the note is on the lower end, right? So if the note is like down here, ish, and you're in this jump positioning, you have so much dash momentum that oftentimes I will double jump. And I will just go so far that I will like disengage out of this situation essentially. I'll just so it's pretty nice. Movement slowly getting better. No buffer coddled you. Same. Too scared to touch that game, man. Wave dashing is a pain though. Stop believing in wave dashing. I never see Johnny's do it. Gets caught air to air. Or sorry, gets caught anti-air. Some random shenanigans ensue because he didn't hit jump S on block and he still did jump D, but he became 5D. Also, I don't know. I'm sure there is a combo off of this that you can do. Me personally, I do 2 big hits into just Raku Chinashi, and it often knocks down against the opponent. In case you wanted a random 5D6 conversion. Fireball, a little too close that he gets challenged out of the fireball. Wait, yeah. And then, so here's another thing. More useful from plus R from what you've seen. All right, I believe you. Here's the thing. 6K with Baiken, it's kind of like me saying, like, you shouldn't stop doing Suzuran throw unless they start throwing you out of Suzuran. Similar with 6K, you shouldn't feel pressure to cancel 6K into special moves unless your opponent is showing that they can comfortably IB this meaty on wake up. Otherwise, just 6K and press jab. Just frame trap them. And then the beauty of jab is you can input 5P into 5K. It's whiff cancelable, and you run the chance of just catching them backdashing with that natural frame trap. Or sorry, frame trap. That natural block string. And like the thing is, even if they get counter hit, right, trying to throw this 6K, the counter hit stagger is long enough that you can link the jab anyway, and it combos. Which is why I say there's not much point in canceling 6K until you're sort of forced to cancel 6K is the way I would put it. The only exception I would say is sometimes you can do 6K claw if you're feeling like doing it, just because it's plus option, unless they're IBing. Tries to throw on air throw on wake up. Probably thought it was like a weird fake setup. God, nobody blocks Eno. Nobody blocks Eno forever. Just how it is. What is this? Yeah, see, so 2D is cool, but obviously, like, you can see that Eno has random gamble options that beat it, which is why, don't forget about Forest. Forest is nice too. It forces them to stroke at run start. Or don't forget about Old Reliable. Old Reliable being jump back P at round start. Jump back P round start into just it. What, you did something that ended up in front of me? Alright, I'm tatamiing on the way down. Got low. Eno's hard to burst. Oh, I did a casual, like 50%. Oof. Eno's hard to block. Oh, I get caught. Oh, I like that. I'm not even kidding. I think I think mashing on wake up is perfectly good against Eno. The only critique I would have personally is I mash throw OS on on wake up. For the simple chump check that if like, so this is an example where it wouldn't have worked, but just in general, I mashed throw OS because the 6P works anyway. 5K I guess is technically faster, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it doesn't matter. It's only actually how it's 2 frames faster, so it's not substantially faster. But I guess in the context of mashing it on wake up, 2 frames is a pretty big deal. But me, I just like the idea that if he ever missed spaces, he's too close. 6P throw us all wake up just throws him if he goes low, which is nice. But this works out. Unfortunate that he does the confirm, but on lightweights this doesn't lead into a knockdown. But it's still fine to do that. I do that. That's like the best thing that you can do out of that situation. Hard read, I guess. I don't know. Miss input. We'll never know. It's got. Yeah, don't be too scared of note on wake up. Sometimes even when the note looks fake, so even when the note is like this, where the note is technically fake, I think it's only fake because he missed Tiger Knee, actually. But either way, even though the note in this situation can feel intimidating, you have Redazami, right? And Redazami, like I said, is really strong unless they're doing constant OSs with Eno. And if they're doing constant OSs with Eno, that's kind of a win in itself because it means that their pressure string isn't as good. They're doing something differently just to deal with the fact that Azami exists, which is good. Like, you want stuff like that to start happening. Oh yeah, gets caught. Just a little off on the spacing. This is also why it's kind of important to understand how much your opponent is anticipating your approaches as Baiken. If they are playing incredibly reactive, something like in this situation. Oh, excuse me, I had to sneeze. Something like this situation, you could easily do like jump forward, just like no run momentum, just a singular jump forward, and then tatami YRC on the way down. And it even though that doesn't convert into anything specific, like you don't get a combo or anything, most likely, it just kind of owns space. And indirectly punishes your opponent for just trying to play this sort of like I'm gonna stand here and wait game. You own space and you start taking your turn back. At least that's what I'd do in that situation, I'd say. Tex out gets a throw. You can take the burst point. I would have taken the burst point. Probably not a big fan of that either. In general, this is true advice for anybody in this game. In this game, you do not want to sacrifice knockdowns against your opponent if you are not in advantage. I would say that's generally true, like no matter what, for the most part. Obviously there's edge cases like, oh, what if they're about to die too and you're like reading bursts or you're doing like a different round. That's different. I just mean like in the context of this situation, you want that knockdown. You need to keep steamrolling them. You need to start whittling away resources from them, and you need to have something consistent to fall back on, right? The last thing you want to do is play neutral from this situation, which is why maximizing damage here is not a smart play. And the thing is, like, I'm not sure if this is supposed to combo, right? I'm not sure if he was trying to do maybe like jump S, jump D into suit on it, right? Like into super. But the thing is, like, that damage isn't worth the potential that the meter holds in general. But either way, like, even if that was a different route, I don't agree with that in general. This is Baiken advice. No longer like, oh, general advice. This is Baiken advice. You should not focus on getting suit on it. So like, let me say. So, if you look at the amount of HP right now, let me see. If you look at the HP right now, even if you do Tsunade is gonna give you. Oh, sorry, I thought I'd opened up the projector. Wrong window. Tsunade is probably gonna give you like that much extra damage. That little extra chunk of that sliver of HP, that's probably the damage that Tsunade does, right there. And then if you want to include the damage that you got, the extra damage you got off the route, it's probably like that much damage off the route. So in total, right, like the extra damage that you got from being optimal in that situation or trying to be optimal. What? Why is my thing broken? There you go. The optimal damage you could have gotten is like not even that much damage. Probably less. Probably overshooting it a little. It's probably like that much. We'll say. But the idea is you need to look at this from the perspective of, um, would my meter have gone to better use in a different way, right? So, um, if your concern is something like, and I'll get to that later. Hold on. I'll continue my thought like as I'm going through it. The difference between that damage, right? So in terms of damage, that's the damage you would get there, right? So if you had taken a normal knockdown, they're here, right? If you win an exchange because you have that 50 bar for the 50-50, that 50-50 win is gonna win that much HP, probably. Probably. Maybe a little less, but like you can see the difference, right? Like saving your meter and then winning an exchange off of it is way more valuable in this situation. You're definitely gonna put them at like this much HP, right? It would be like this chunk of damage, but they'd be ending like here, right? That's way more valuable in my eyes in this situation than cashing out on a little bit of extra damage, especially because the knockdown off of Sudana isn't like especially better, right? Isn't it like basically the same? I'm pretty sure. I don't really end with super all that much, which kind of goes to show like how little value I have in it as an ender, unless it's gonna kill or unless it's the only thing that knocks down. But I would imagine the only reason that you would think like, oh, maybe I should do super is because you're trying to burn some resources. Like, oh, let me just burn this 50 meter real quick because my opponent's about to have gold bar and they have burst on deck, which means I got to worry about super, etc., etc. The thing is, you have alternative things that you can do with your meter even, that could have been like safer stuff. Like if you're that scared of burst super on wake up, then you play around it on Oki, right? But that burst super's coming anyway, right? That burst super is like no matter what, had you done optimal damage or had you not, they're gonna survive that situation, and you're gonna have to deal with those resources anyway. So in my opinion, it just makes sense to hold on to 50 meter, and it's more valuable overall than that little extra bit of damage would have been, in this situation, especially on a character like Baiken. Also, if this was just a weird reset, you got me. I don't know if that's supposed to be a weird 5D reset, but I'm almost positive based on his inputs that's not what he wanted. But he gets the 5D anyway. See, like here I would still end. Dang, is that optimal? No, I don't agree. See, like, no matter what, you don't want to start committing. You're not trying to commit resources to your combos at all, in my opinion, right now. Simply because even if you're at gold bar, it doesn't matter. Hold on to your meter because you're getting all these free hits, so there's no reason to spend any of it. Just do a combo that knocks down. I don't know if maybe he tried to do that because he wasn't sure if this combo knocked down. Maybe that's why. But even still, then my response would be just do an easier combo. Do something that knocks down. Don't try to like paste together like a combo in this situation. Oh no, dude! No, what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? Oh no! I was gonna say, what are you doing? You could do like so many things here. The smartest thing, probably, even I didn't think about it actually. I didn't realize his burst came back. The smartest thing to do here is you do throw into burst super, and it 100% kills. I'm pretty sure he doesn't need a burst super, but like you never know, right? In the context of like a tournament setting, I would probably do burst super. I wouldn't risk it. I guess technically in the context of a tournament setting, I would do something much better than that. I'd do like throw Yozansen safe route or something. But yeah, there's a lot of other things you could have done besides that. Now you're full screen. This is really awkward. Yeah, this is really awkward. You do not want to stay full screen very long. My advice here would be do like dash forward. Like I said, do run forward and then neutral jump, or like carry that momentum forward and then see which way the note is going and play off of that. Because they're going to try to chip you out. You're like almost dead. Right. Oh wow, that was fast. I didn't realize this was a rematch room. Oh, never mind. It's edited. Ooh, that's fancy. Oh, that does. Oh, he did stroke. That's why I was like, why did that work? He did a button at runs there. Or he tried to jump at runs there. He got caught. So this is like general advice, I would say. Kind of subtle, but pretty important. Ino's not super good at covering this situation. At least not if she stands in place. If whenever it looks like you're resetting to this kind of neutral against her, if you start doing stuff like I'm gonna jump, sorry, dash, jump, be up here, and then fall like on the way down, like this, and have jump S is huge ass hitbox, just like poke here, right? Just I'm just gonna harass you with the max range of jump S. Sometimes you can go a little deeper so that you like actually hit them, right? Like sometimes you can go wee and then you like jump and then you're downward like here. Sorry, I should draw a little better. It's like you going down and then jump S is this thing. Jump S is poking at its very end, specifically the very end. Your goal is not to confirm any hits or anything off of jump S. Your goal is to own space. You're sort of just being annoying, right? You're being annoying and they're thinking, I don't want to deal with this really annoying, like pokey kind of neutral. I'm gonna start approaching this character, which is what you want normally. You want people running towards you because they're getting mad at how you're playing. Or you get even more aggressive and you continue to hunt them down as they run away, right? When you're owning space. But letting Ino set up notes like this is gonna make it a lot harder to play against her in general. And then at this height, you don't get to Tommy anyway. So off of a late air dash, you never get to Tommy pretty much ever. I guess maybe if it's like Johnny and he's really tall, but you don't really get to Tommy ever. So what you should do there is you should just reverse Gatling. You should reverse Gatling into jump P here. Because even on block, that's fine. Your momentum forward will make it the jump P connect on block either way, and you're either gonna get a block string or a hit confirm because you can do jump S, jump P, right? And by that jump P, you're like, okay, I'm pressing jump K or I'm doing a block string, right? Misses the hit confirm. You got to get those counter hits on confirms. That stuff is so important with Baiken. Oh, he does the throw too early, I think, or he was actually trying to frame trap. I can't tell. What happened? Look at the last like 10 seconds again. This is gives up his turn. Don't forget you can backdash here until people start to like openly deal with the option. I do it quite a lot because you're only -2. You're not actually punishable. You can often backdash smaller normals like this unless people are picking stuff that's whiff cancelable. You can often mash backdash after running slash and then press like instant 5H and get some reward for it or force them in a block. Again, another situation where this angle is fine, but if you pick jump S here, jump S is great here in terms of being a tool to harass your opponent, like the thing I was talking about. Because if you air dash jump S here, it's not going to convert into anything, and even if you had the meter for it to become something, I would never waste the meter on converting a jump S from here. But the idea is like when you're air dashing forward, you'll press the button around here, and jump S is just this annoying hitbox that hits like right here, right? It's just poking at them. It's just so hard to anti-air because it's hitting so low that you can't 6P it. It's stuffing in this really specific way that's just controlling space in front of her. That kind of thing is like good to slowly build awareness of. It's a really good skill to have with her, and it'll make her neutral feel a lot stronger. Gets caught. He could have technically air dashed back to Tommy off of this jump, but it's hard to like perfectly gauge when you're gonna get hit when you're not. So could have either way, like that situation. I wouldn't criticize either thing. Messes up the combo, gets tech throw. Yeah, see, so like another example. 6K is plus, dude. You don't need to be scared running up and doing 6K into jab. Because like I said, even if they throw, the jab combos if you link. So you can own that plus frame situation if you just play around it. But if you do 6K to Tommy, especially if they IB, your turn is now over, right? You're essentially forced to zombie, if anything. And that's not a good feeling ever as Baiken. Oh, good block. Oh, it sucks. Just gets caught holding up back. This is a situation where if your opponent's sniffing out that you hold up back a lot on strings in the same spot, you need to occasionally just not hold up back, right? Obviously, it's not silly to say, but obviously, you just need to sometimes not hold up back. And like hold your ground and try to punish what they're doing, right? So what I would do in that situation, if I was just crouch blocking, he did that air dash, I would throw him out of it. I guess the easier thing to do would be to wait for him to cross up and press 6P, but throw is a lot more consistent for me because it's less dependent on them spacing their air dash so that they land right behind you. It's more you're just reacting to them being above you and whiffing a normal. This should kill. Should hella kill. I don't think you needed to make that complicated. I think you could have just done close slash super. Do you want to do the whole comp? Run Star Season run? Yeah, I like that. Get some reward off of it. Could have done a better route. If it's a grounded hit, you always want to do that claw route. Here's the thing. If you get grounded counter hit Rokonsogi, it is worth practicing hit confirming this into the claw specifically. Like, don't do this jump S jump D thing because you want to maximize your reward here. If you don't feel comfortable trying the burst safe route, that's fine. Just do Tetsu. Even if you get their burst, that's okay. Because that's a win too, right? But I just think like the potential to do like that combo is huge. It does so much more damage than this. It does. So if that did that much damage, assuming they wouldn't burst the Tetsu route, right? Tetsu route probably does around like this much damage, like just straight up. It does so much damage. It does basically 50% to most characters in the game. So you're talking like double damage. It's really good to know. It's you definitely want to know how to do that. And then once you're like comfortable doing that, you practice the burst safe route, right? So that you have even more control of that situation. And even the burst safe route does more damage than it, I think. Maybe that one might not be true actually. Let me see. Space Mosquito, right? This is a pretty far hit, so this might have been the same situation as before. No, that's fine. That should be fine. Yeah, that hit fine. Yeah. Perfect spacing. Yeah. So this is kind of like a tangent. If you want to mess with some other block strings, I would say, I'll do like a little bit of a tangent here. I'll give you some canned block strings that'll probably be nice if you can like build some muscle memory for them and then learn to hit confirm them, right? Let me be really lazy and use notepads specifically. But we'll write some block strings down. Because you've been doing the 2K close / 5H string every time, right? So adding some spice will help. But something like 5p, something as simple as 5p into 6k into ideally 5p, but it's gonna depend. Like ideally, it's you. Hold on. Sorry about that. Someone came in my room and asked me something. Give me like 1 second. I have to text and address somebody. But I have it saved. Hopefully this doesn't take long, so I don't have to cut this out or anything. I got invited to go eat dinner, but I'm just trying to chill after work, honestly. Sorry about that. So, 5p, 6k, and then fastest thing that connects. It's usually it's like 5p or 5k, right? And the beauty of this is it's just you're really close to them, and it's a plus reset. Like you're just close to them, and it works. Otherwise, you can do this one's pretty nice for catching like some extra stuff. And it's really good if they're not IBing the call. Like you'll get some good mileage out of it probably. You can do something like 5p 2k close slash and then do 2h, and then you can basically just like pick any special, depending, like pick special based on what you want to do. Like you just pick the special move that you want, right? Like you can do the Tommy YRC here, and by most of the time, like you'll catch people. You can do a claw reset, so that you can play off the plus frames on the claw. You can do Armor Dash Throw, and it's probably pretty well spaced by here. If you want something safer, because technically close slash 2H has a gap, you can do something like uh the same string essentially, but you swap out close slash for 2s like this, or sorry, 2 close slash 2h for 2s. And then you can like it's basically the same. The only difference is the special cancel is a lot smaller, so you have a smaller window to work with. Um, but it's also like a really good spacing to set up, right? And similarly, you can do like 2K. You don't have to do 5p 6K if you don't want to. You can also do 2K into 6K for like the string I talked about earlier. So like you can do that, or you can do that. Like both of them are basically the same. Um, here, into like that situation. The difference is that 2K is technically more minus. I don't know if that matters, honestly. That's the only reason I've ever like not done it, but they're like essentially both the same thing. Um, but doing some block strings like this or like adding hits, again, a lot of it is based on distance, right? Like if you want to keep starting your block strings with 2K for any reason, then instead you can just add like an extra hit to supplement that sort of spacing that you've sacrificed, right? Like, oh, I'm one hit short, so now I'm gonna do this block string, and it is essentially the same idea, right? Um, and to be fair, a lot of these block strings, like most of these block strings that I'm writing, are assuming that your opponent won't faultless you. If they faultless you, then you start getting pushed out faster. You can't use this many buttons in a block string that's getting faultless, right? But the idea is the same, right? Like, um, you want to have like some diverse block strings like this, that play around like different ideas and different spacings. And honestly, these aren't like super complicated. You'll see me do like stuff like this like all the time. Where they're just slight variations. They do slightly different things, but they're really like set in stone. It's not like I improv my block strings all the time. The only time you might see me start doing some stuff that's weird on block strings is if my opponent is very determined to just block, I will start getting very greedy. I will start doing 5p 5p redash. I'll start doing 2k walk forward 2k, because I'm just gonna play off that. Like if you want to wait forever, then yeah, sure. But the thing is, like, when you start doing things like 2k walk forward 2k, your opponent, as patient as they are, they will eventually do something. They have to. It's a fighting game. They can't just let you keep doing things that blatantly not okay in front of them. But the idea is only I know when I'm going to do 2k walk forward 2k, or I'm gonna do 2k immediately just press far S, right? Like no walk forward, nothing, and then catch you pressing buttons, right? That's sort of like the way that I like to pressure with Baiken against better players usually. I build that sort of situation in block strings where I'm testing my opponent. Are you willing to just block forever? Look at how obvious it is that I'm just walking forward in this block string. Like, dude, are you okay with that? And then like even if they start jumping or stuff, that's fine. I can start doing different things to cover that. But like I force interaction by doing that, right? By not doing canned block strings after a certain point, and then letting them play off of the special enders, right? But as a beginner, like things like this help a lot, I think, especially this first one. I think 5p 6k into that, or if you want a low option to catch people jumping, right, like that sort of dynamic is really good to have, because you're gonna start adding extra moments in your block strings that will just naturally catch people having an inappropriate response, right? Like you're just adding some extra stuff, because if you always do this, it's much easier to play around, right? And obviously this is hard to adjust, because fighting games are a lot about how comfortable are you with this fighting game as a whole. Are you comfortable against this specific character? Are you comfortable doing your combos yet on hit confirms? There's a lot of things that you're having to learn at once, right? Which is why I understand that having a set block string is very helpful, and that it's entirely okay to have set block strings. One specific one is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's entirely okay to do 2k close slash 5h into like a special ender. That's a good starting point. It's just once you want to start testing yourself, and this is a lot easier to do if you're fighting people closer to your level, because there's less stress on you to do everything perfectly, right? Because you know that you're at about the same level, so even if you're trying to implement newer things and you might mess up, it's less punishing overall, right? That's the benefit of playing people around your levels. You get to implement things that you're not confident in, and sort of slowly develop that muscle memory instead of messing up against a more experienced player one time and then getting blown up for it, right? But that is something that will help you a lot over time, and it's something that those like few block strings, you wanna like work on that over time. That'll help you a lot. Let's see. Oh my god, throw mash. What a god, I wouldn't have done that. What a god. And then a subtle like critique, I guess. Don't always forget that it's dangerous going for 4H mash compared to 6P throw OS. It's good reward for Baiken though, so I can't hate, but it is scary for Sao. As Baiken, don't forget that off of people's bursts, when you tech like this, you're actually at an altitude high enough that if the opponent is determined to chase you down, and in this specific moment, you can already start committing to IAD back to Tommy. You just do it instantly. Because you can see that a Neno is very comfortable rushing you down all the way after your burst. Right? But if you do that to Tommy, it'll start punishing him for doing stuff like that. He won't throw you out of that situation. He doesn't doesn't move far enough fast enough. That way you don't get bullied off of him bursting you. Oh, that was rude. Oof. Also, I choose always to continue stand blocking against. Personally, I don't know. I imagine it's better to not. If I see HCL like this, I actually do not stand into it. I'd rather them whiff it. It's probably, I imagine it's worse on whiff than it is on block. So you want to just stay crouching there, and then once the move is over, you can do something. Technically, if Viking kind of sees this happening, she can 2H out of this situation if they don't decide to commit the meter, because 2H actually reaches. You won't necessarily punish them, but you get to start a block string from really far away, which is an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing that she can kind of punish an HCL from that situation. Runs forward, but I'm assuming he missed his 6P is my guess. Right here, maybe. Not running forward. Yeah, so this is kind of like a difficult part of playing Baiken in general. People will like find, if you're playing Baiken, you'll find over time that this is one of the harder parts of her to get better at, and that is fighting your way out of the corner. Fighting your way out of the corner as Baiken is like an art in and of itself, because of the way that she's designed, right? In terms of her toolkit for dealing with people on top of her, right? So I've talked about it before, but Baiken's super jump height is her regular jump height, essentially. It's not higher than her regular jump, which is not the same with the rest of the cast members, as far as I know. I think everybody else has an actual super jump, but not her, right? Which means that at this spacing, other characters have the option of super jumping, right? And then after that, they can air dash forward, and then once their character model starts turning around on the way downward, depending on the character, you might have different options, right? If you're Eno, maybe you can, or Eno or Foss, maybe you can FTC stall in the air for a little bit. Maybe you have a dive kick, etc., etc. Maybe you have another air resource, another air dash, right? But there are a lot of characters who can play off of this escape route out of the corner, but not Baiken. Baiken's regular jump and super jump are the same, right? So the problem that you'll run into as Baiken is if you jump and you decide to air dash out of the corner, what's going to end up happening is at this spacing, you're only going to travel about this far. And because you're so low to the floor specifically, this is like a really important distinction and why it's different from a super jump, is because you're so low off the ground when you do this air dash out, you're and so close to your opponent, by the way, because when you air dash, your character continues to travel forward, even just slightly, right? But it's more noticeable off of higher heights, right? Like if you're super jumping. But because she's not high, even if you don't IAD, even if you do a full jump into air dash, you're not that far from them at the end of the air dash. Which means by the time you're turning around as Baiken here, your opponent has already turned around, because they'll turn around faster than you in the situation, and they are fully capable of anti-airing, right? You could easily faultless, right? Maybe if they're not going to throw you out of that initial air dash, you could probably faultless an anti-air if you didn't do anything. Obviously, Baiken can also Azami, but that's a scary thing to commit to all the time, and it's not reliable in the situation to do every time. The problem is like that's not a very good feeling. Even more so if they're capable of air throwing you out, they'll just throw you back in the corner, right? So that means that Baiken is a character that when she's in this situation, she's not thinking how do I get, over my opponent and out of the corner like this way. Hers specifically is how do I build this much distance? Usually it's like around this much distance. How do I build this much distance with my opponent and then play around my tools at my disposal to either build space or harass my opponent off of me enough that I can kind of like fight my way out of the corner. She has to specifically fight her way out of the corner more often than not. Which is hard. I would say this is probably one of the hardest parts about Baiken, execution aside. This is probably one of the hardest parts about Baiken because this requires a lot of game knowledge overall, right? You need to know your opponent's options. You need to know what they tend to do in general. Like, you need to know player and character matchup for this kind of thing, right? And you'll get better at that over time. But in general, right, once you've built this spacing, if you think mids are coming, Suzerain, right? You can Suzerain out, and even if you don't want to commit to a follow-up from that situation, you can easily Suzerain and then YRC, right? 25 meter is not in like a super expensive option. In this game, you can often find yourself a 25 meter unless you're getting absolutely rolled. To the point where you can easily Suzerain up to this point, catch them pressing like a mid, like maybe her like with Eno, right? Maybe she did an HCL, maybe she did Stan Forest for some reason. You can YRC when you're right here and your 5k will connect and you can start your turn, right? And that's your goal as Baiken, doing stuff like that, right? Obviously if they're a little closer, like they're standing here and you have a good smell on when they're going to press a button, like you can sniff it out of them. You can Azami, right? You can Azami and fight your way out of the corner. If you do running slash on a poke, you side switch. If it's counter hit, you'll get a combo. It's now your turn. Like, this is the kind of things that like gives players stress when they're fighting Baiken in these situations. It's why it's stressful for them fighting Baiken, because if she can nail those rewards out of the corner, it's huge for her, right? Alternatively, if your opponent is very, very respectful, I'm talking like max respect, like they just stand and look at you at this distance. It's a little scary to do, but you can buffer Claw. Claw is gonna pull them a little closer, so they're like, when you claw them, you're gonna pull them, they're gonna be like here, right? And you're +2, so you can press that far S a little more comfortably, right? The reason claw's terrifying is because it's 21 frames. A lot of things can happen in 21 frames when you're stuck there, right? But every now and then you need to do it. At least I think you need to do it. Because this is such a threatening distance for Baiken against some characters, right? Even slightly closer is a threatening distance against Baiken more often than not, because Baiken's 5H only reaches, like if she 5H's, it's only gonna protect like up to here, like it's this little bubble. So it's gonna whiff, but other characters will have pokes that will often hit you there, right? That's her 5H. Her far S only goes, her far S is only capable of going like this far, right? So in addition to not having a super jump, Baiken doesn't have great normals to press out of the corner, or just in general, like out of block, but more specifically in the corner where you can't run away. She doesn't have great normals to rely on, right? Because 2S's hurt box comes out first, and other buttons are slow, right? Like far S is like average speed but kind of stubby. 2K is pretty good actually. It's probably one of her best Abare options, but it is short and stubby compared. Sorry, someone came in again. I was saying 2K is probably her best normal, but it's bad for two specific reasons. One, it's still kind of stubby. It only reaches like that far at max range, which is still pretty far for like a 5 frame normal. The problem is if you ever hit it at max range, the only thing that you can go into is far slash. But at that distance, at max range, if you hit max range 2K far S, it no longer combos into a knockdown, which means that Abare option is not super good. So because she lacks that super jump and because she lacks the ability to just press buttons out of block reliably, she needs to do those little tricks, right? Like that Suzerain armor dash, guessing right on a Nizami, or if your opponent is moving forward and harassing you, oftentimes you will find that IADing back specifically is a very strong option here. Because of the spacing it puts you at and because of the tools that she has outside of that option. Right, so if you IAD back, specifically IAD is nice because it doesn't put you at as high as jumping back. It tucks you into the corner very, very specifically, where it's hard to interact with her if you give her the right amount of space. If you IAD back here, you can jump S and it harasses this entire range out of the corner, right? Um, or you can IAD back, and if you think they'll let you have it, like if you think you have the time to set it, you can tatami, right? And tatami will splash out in front of you after you land, specifically after you land, which is really nice. And sort of give you this little protection wall to play behind out of the corner. Right? And so like using those two things together, you can start to build that distance that she wants. Like I said, like the tatami will sort of start forcing them back. The jump S will slowly start pushing them back, right? If they're too close to you, you want to find moments like that. Sorry, not too close. If they're standing in this mid range specifically, you want to try to fight out of the corner using those tools in different ways. Um, and then it's gonna do one of two things, right? It'll give you that distance that you want, like this, or it'll do the opposite. They're gonna get more aggressive. They're not gonna want you to be able to ID in the corner, so they're gonna stay close to you, right? But the thing is, if you stay close to her, two different things can happen. Now 2K is a better Obare option to press because they're close to you. They want to be close to you all the time. So you can 2K a little more reliably. Um, Alternatively, if you push them out to like here, because they're no longer standing where Ino is right now, now you can actually jump an IAD out a little easier because the spacing has been shifted because they want to be closer to you. Right? So it's like you can see that like she has different ways of, no, I wouldn't say forcing, but sort of like egging the opponent into different spacings and playing off of the tools at her disposal. But because they're so like niche, and I wouldn't like, other characters are usually more capable of pressing buttons out of block or just jumping out compared to her, and she needs to usually work a little harder to establish the idea that you can like let her escape the corner or she can fight out of it, right? Because you can't always Azami, much less against a character like obviously, but you can't always Azami out of the corner. You can't always Suzanon out of the corner. So you need to be able to play around those spacings and sort of like build the spacings you need to either fight out from here or push them into like a, or like force them into like a closer range so that you can press things like 5P and 2K, which are pretty good up close up Abare options compared to her mid-range Abare options, which are like way worse. But yeah, that like long segment is a very important thing to like understand, I'd say, with Baiken. And it's a lot to process. I went over like a billion things there, right? But it's really good to sort of like slowly start working on that early, obviously, over time, because this is like a point where most Baikens just die. Most Baikens just die in the corner if they can't hit Suzanons or Azamis. Even I'd sometimes just die in the corner if I don't hit them. That's just kind of like the life she lives sometimes. If you're not willing to gamble, it's hard to fight your way out of the corner every now and then, right? And you can't always gamble, right? But yeah, that's why you'll see him kind of like running into these normals and doing all these things, right? Because you need to like build that understanding. Right, like still see still like stuck in the corner, stuck in the corner. That's the kind of thing that happens, man. Also, what was that? He did 5H, not a big fan of it. I wouldn't say there's much merit in going for 5H at round start. Yes, it crushes like instant hover dash, maybe if it's like a slow button. It might also outspace Faras, and it might be stroke, but I think the whiff on it is too shitty for it to be something I'd press often at round start. I think you're much better off just moving around in different spacings to cover those options I listed, than feeling pressure to press something like 5H at round start. I would probably sooner. Oh wait, I'm so dumb. He did. I keep forgetting. My bad. I should look at his options. Or sorry, his options, his inputs. He wanted claw at round start, horizontal claw. That's fine. Sometimes I claw at round start. Drops combo. Oh, gets the throw off of it. Okay. Yeah, technically you can make that burst safe. But that's a good thing to practice on your own. And even I don't do the burst safe throw OS off of the 2D most of the time. Because if you get the jump H, you drop the combo. It's a crummy feeling. Yeah, it's tough. Bursting stuff, you gotta wait a little longer there. This is the Uzansen, yeah. I mean, either way, to be fair, I wouldn't. I'm not a super big fan of this Yazansen because you didn't have the meter anyway. Yeah, most people get hit by this Yazansen because you don't have the 50 meters, so they're not anticipating it. But if for whatever reason they block the Yazansen, like if they were trying to throw mash or something on wake up, after like the IB Tatami, the Yazansen gets blocked, and at that distance it's just punishable. So I think not a super big fan of doing it that early. You can wait to do it. Nice, gets a knockdown. Misses the Tatami set. I honestly probably should practice this, but I'm too lazy. Quite frankly, I'm mostly too lazy to do this most of the time. The way this works, if I'm not mistaken, is it is often based on how many hits you got. Not necessarily how many hits, how far you are from them when you do the running slash. It'll determine the spacing. So like for example, on this one, he was pretty far when he did it because it was off of 5H. So he actually didn't need to jump forward. He needed to jump back and then IAD forward and then Tatami as he was turning around. But most of the time, I just do the safe jump, or you see me do like other stuff, like neutral jump, and then I play around. Are you gonna blitz me? Are you gonna wake up, throw, etc. Oh, doesn't recognize that he whiffed. Oh, missed the IB. Yeah, the IB that you get the punish. Jump S. I would say I'm not a super duper big fan of jump S at round start either, simply because it's a bit of a big gamble to take when you're this close to your opponent, right? Because round start is this close, right? So ideally, round start options in general, right, for most characters, you don't want to pick something that is scary to do if your opponent is close to you and doesn't commit to something too, right? That's just true in general for most round start options, which is why I'm hesitant to like do something as crazy as that, and why most of the time I will opt for something like JP instead, because JP is very low commitment. And then here, off of far slash, you can usually stay crouch blocking against Eno, so that doesn't happen. And then I wouldn't hold up back there against Eno. Like I said, it's hard, right? Because like from here, you got to fight out of the corner. You got to find those moments. Nice. That was a good res on me. Finally. Oh, a little too close. A little too close. Yeah. So this time he needed to add one more hit. This is like a really nuanced thing, right? Learning the space of Tommy's as a biking player is so important, but it's such a nuanced concept, right? Because of that, like he dashes after he does the air dash, and you don't want to do that. He just needed to do Rocky to the Tommy. The dash actually puts him too close, and it was blitzable. It's the Tuzansen. Alright. Oh, misses up. Definitely just needed to do neutral jump. He tried to get an extension, I think. It looks like he tried to do 2K far ass. I don't think you get that anyway off of that. Tetsuzansen. So getting claw and then Tetsuzansen and launching, you can't get 2K. They'll tech too fast. Sometimes you can get like 5K, but most of the time I just take the knockdown like you just got right now. Right? I'm pretty sure it was just claw, right? Like raw claw starter. It wasn't like the Tetsuzansen starter. Yeah. Like this, in the corner you'd get this, but mid screen you don't get this. And he mistimed the 2K. Right, so like at that distance he should have just you gotta recognize the distance and know it's like, okay, this won't combo. I'll take my knockdown and I'll just do neutral jump on set. Nice. Oh, messes up. So I'm not gonna lie, me personally, a lot of the times when I make this misinput, because I make this misinput too, where I miss my Taganio's nonsense. Right, is it like here, right? You burst them? Or did I skip it? Oh, I skipped it. Whoops. Where was it? There. Whoops. So a lot of times after that, I press jump H, because when I do this, I often jump forward. I guess you didn't carry that much forward momentum, but no, actually you were. Yeah, you double jump, right? Honestly, off of whiff Yozansen, whiff jump S, like messing up the the Tiger Knee, a lot of the times if I get the YRC, I just input jump H because jump H is messed up. And if they stand blocking on the ground, I'm gonna go into Tatami. And if they jump an IB, I can do a delayed Yozansen and then like roaming cancel to make it safe. And if they jump and regular block the jump H, it's your turn. Like it just is messed up. Nice. Yeah. All right, this is where we were. Gets the right spacing. Tries to play it safe, I think. I gets caught. Yeah. Okay. I think my biggest takeaway, at least for Kato, is I think that he would benefit most from the block string stuff. I think working on his block strings would probably help him on his offense a little bit better. And then maybe also learning to play neutral with jump S, I would say isn't like super duper hard mechanically, which is why it's nice to be able to try to like work that in early with Baiken. And then obviously I talked about all those like, oh, you need a space to Tommy, you need to do that. That's much further along. You don't gotta worry about that early on. For him, it was mostly that I noticed he could probably benefit more if he could hit confirm a little better and hold his turn a little longer by making those like small adjustments, like doing that 6k meaty and doing jab, right? Or sometimes running up and doing jab 6k and then doing either jab again for the frame trap or 2k for the frame trap, right? Stuff like that, right? But adding those little extra bits, or maybe like learning one or two of those other like canned block strings that I listed, to try to play around some other like mix-ups and stuff. Also, I think I didn't see him commit to Suzuran throw maybe more than once or at all. And he would often pick Sakura really early. Where most of the time, I don't think you should. I think you should just chuck people until they can prove that that they're capable of like scaring you into like doing the early throw bait. I would just throw people. It's why you basically never see me do the throw bait. Honestly, most of the time, if people get good at throwing Suzuran throw, I just don't do it anymore. But that's like personal preference. But last thing is I'll try to give some examples of like visually what it looks like when I'm talking about fighting out of the corner with Baiken, right? And that idea of like the different spacings that people hold, right? So most often, like people, depending on how good their characters' normals are, people might feel comfortable with Baiken here, right? Notice the spacing that this leaves me at, right? This is why super jump is not reliable for Baiken. Like even if you super jump, the time you're descending, as long as your opponent didn't commit to anything, you're forced to block on the other side, and it's not much better. Even if you did get out of the corner, it's still a block string. There's not really like many ways to get around that, right? Which is why I say like if they're gonna give you that much respect, you can jump and do that tatami, right? See how they have to block that tatami? The tatami is great. It owns space, right? If you're too scared to try to set a tatami like off of that or off of a neutral jump because you think, oh, what if they throw a projectile or what if they do something faster, you can jump S like that. Jump S's reach isn't as good, but it is a much faster option. And if they're standing slightly closer, like around here, you're gonna get that poke. You're gonna poke them like that, and then like I said, just forcing interaction like that can be really good, right? Because off of that situation, it's like, okay, now are you gonna press a button? Now are you gonna fall for this? Or are you gonna keep respecting me? That kind of thing. Or if I said like it earlier, I said if they keep holding that spacing, where they like barely beat your super jump out of the corner like that, if you were to do it, claw, right? Claw hits that far. Claw's plus, right? Similar with 2H, but I'm not a super big fan of 2H because 2H isn't as reliable. The nice thing about 2H is that it has that low profile on it. So if you think they're not going to do anything crazy, like you think they're not going to press a low from here, which is pretty likely as long as they're not thinking about Suzuran, you can 2H out of the corner too. Right? But learning to be aggressive out of the corner with Baiken is so crucial. If your opponent is not trying to give you these azamis, right? If they're not giving you these, then you need to learn to be aggressive in different ways. I need to get better at this too. I often mess up this tatami out of the corner, this IAD back one. But stuff like that, super duper good. Even if they're closer to you, depending on the situation, you can do like you can do like this into that, or you can super jump into that. It's a little better to do that, and then you press jump S to protect it. But that concept is like so important, right? And sometimes you'll see me like be very confident and press buttons out of the corner like that, right? And that's always gauged on if you've been able to establish that respect out of your opponent. Right? That's the most important thing with Baiken. And it's very hard to put all those pieces of the puzzle together. But I often see Baikens die in the corner because they're unable to get that one Sakura or that one Rokensoki or that one Susan on throw, etc. And that's where it becomes beneficial to be more comfortable doing like this. And I would also wanted to point out, like I said, it's better to not do the neutral jump like this or the jump back like that, because she's in hang time a lot longer, which means that your opponent has a lot more time to react, and more often than not, the tatami is so slow to come out off of this that you need to spend 25 meter to make it not bad. So it's one of those things where it's like you got to be careful, right? Like think about it, like your opponent can even air to air this if they're in the right spacing, right? But this isn't super reliable. It takes too long. Where if you do the IAD back, you're at a lower altitude, right? Like notice the difference between being like up here and also how long it takes me to get to the floor versus look at how fast that is, right? Like twice the speed essentially. So like you want to be able to shoot off those rapid options like that, and people might bite. Like you might whiff that and they might press a Forest or something, right? Because that's not that fast. But that's like a super important skill to have. Okay. I'll cut it there for analysis on that. That was like an hour. It was a good chunk. Obviously, I covered like a lot more than just strictly the analysis. I gave a lot of general advice too. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna cut that stream. I'm gonna cut the stream again, and then restart and maybe talk about some of this stuff a little more. But I don't want it to be the same video. But I'll be right back.